Good afternoon. Welcome to BD TV. Thank you very much for joining us for this 20-minute session. It's the usual format. We've got a guest who leads BD and marketing in one of our major professional firms. We're going to have a chat with that guest. There'll be a poll, and there's a chance for you to pose questions at any stage just by using the Q&A at the foot of the screen. So we're really keen that as these webinars develop, that we recognize the fact that if chapter one over the last year was everyone going into a virtual relationship environment, we're now entering chapter two, which is this hybrid of face-to-face and digital and virtual. And how do we blend this properly? So I'm delighted today to welcome along Simon Miles from PwC. Simon, thank you very much for joining us.
Hi, Pete. Hi, everybody else. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, great. Thanks, Simon. I've known Simon for over 15 years now, shockingly. He's always been through, the last financial crisis, working together, and now COVID. Simon's always got a positive and fresh way of looking at things. So. And he's now responsible for as a sales manager for private business at PwC. So he's kindly agreed to share some of his thoughts and some of what he's seen about how people plan to balance this new hybrid environment.
Yeah.
So Simon, you've had 20 years in top 6 accounting firms, and you were brave enough.
You really that long, but yeah.
yeah. Sorry, I'm outing you here in terms of age. And you were brave enough to move during the pandemic. How has that been for you?
It's been really good, actually. It's quite a challenge, finding a new role, taking on that role and getting started. But I thought this is the way of working now, and it's fine. Did most of it remotely or via Zoom calls. Started just before Christmas. Did a little bit of time in the office. Then our default was working. PwC's default was working from home. So I've been working from home for 2 or 3 months. And just as things have eased up over the last few weeks or so, you can probably see I'm back in the Southampton office today, which is great. So yeah, really good.
Yeah,
thank you.
Good. Love the chair. It was worth it for that alone.
Yes, especially new chairs.
Yeah. It feels like, in that time, and I'm sure you've seen that over the last year, people have gone into their own little safe space. And now they're starting to come back out again. They're starting to think about face-to-face meetings and seminars and events. What are you seeing?
We're definitely trying to move that way. I mean, at the moment, there's nothing in that. We're doing very successful online seminars. The cost of setting them up, as everyone knows, is minimal. You don't have that stress of you paid for facility, how many people you're going to get the right people. But we're definitely keen to move towards that. But there's nothing booked in yet. And also in terms of meeting clients, we haven't, unless the client really expressed a desire to meet, we haven't been meeting clients. But I did my first client meeting this week for a long time. So basically went for a walk with a client and bought a coffee along the way. So that was really good, actually. So yeah, just you can be flexible. We're keen to move towards that, hence opening up the offices, making them very safe, making them very hospitable for guests. But definitely got an eye on that now, how we can start doing more face-to-face as opposed to just the virtual meetings. Yeah.
There's been lots of talk about the joys or the benefits of virtual and how it's nearly as good, but it's far from perfect, isn't it? What are you finding the biggest challenge for people trying to build relationships in terms of that virtual environment?
I think it's that sort of trying to get the second meeting and building the relationship. So I think coming into a new role, I was able to get a number of meetings and to create some opportunities, and we won some work off the back of that. But if I'm brutally honest with myself, a lot of that is from existing connections and people that I've worked with in the past, and that's. I think we've all got a head around doing this now. So, something I personally never like doing video calls, and I actually find it quite strange now when I do a call and the person's not on video. So I've gone, but yes, it's fine for those people that and where there's an existing relationship. And actually, it's going okay for ones where there's no relationship. But I'm finding that sort of second or third one is quite hard when you've not actually met the person. And the same with the event we ran. We ran an event looking at the cities that are doing really well in the UK, which we're very fortunate. Southampton, because Southampton was in the top 3, and it was great. You have sort of 150, 160 people at that event, but you can't engage with any of them, and you've got all their names, and yeah, that's a challenge. Is how those sort of people, and you'll have heard this from others, but you might have had a coffee with or had a quick chat with afterwards, or agreed to catch up with. That bit is the challenge I'm finding in the virtual world in terms of business development.
Yeah. I'm not surprised to hear you say that. And you mentioned about going for a coffee with someone, having that face-to-face meeting. Do you think location is going to be as important? I know you mentioned that you're based in Southampton, and I know you live nearby. How's that dynamic around the capital and regional offices going to change especially for the big 6 accounting firms?
Yeah, I think it's going to change. I think it will change massively, and it's too soon to say, but certainly the conversations we've had with clients and targets and prospects, and the interesting thing when you're doing the Zoom and the Google Hangout is you get to see someone's house, and you're always having that conversation about where they live and where you live, and that sort of synergy. So meetings that we've sort of provisionally, if you like, booked in, often they're going to be in a much more, say, I live near Winchester, or the people I'm going with live near Southampton, but the client might live, I don't know, say Basingstoke, where you might meet halfway. Whereas traditionally the default would have been, we'll come to your offices, or if that person's working in London, we'll travel into London. And yeah, that's very much, I think, going to be the way forward. We're of course relying on the wider economy, places like coffee shops and hotels and restaurants opening up to facilitate that. But absolutely, I've spoken to a number of FDs over the last few weeks who changed, like myself, have changed roles during the COVID lockdown and haven't ever been to their offices in London. So, and aren't in a hurry to go back in either necessarily, these people. So they're absolutely, we would meet in a much more fluid about where you meet. It depends on where they're working and where they're living, as opposed to, right, we're coming to your offices in Reading, in London, in Bristol. Yeah. Which is great, actually. It's much more interesting, I think, in many ways.
Yeah, I suppose that could suit you nicely to have a few pub gardens in Surrey and Winchester.
Yeah, I've been checking them out, and that's another great conversation to have with the prospect. Often it is where could you meet, and they start talking about their favourite pub or coffee, and it's just been that's been really good, I think.
Yeah,
and it's a bit, in terms of getting meetings with prospects and targets, and it's probably easy because it's that thought of 20 minutes. I try not to take it personally, but probably 20 minutes on a Zoom or Google Hangout with me is probably a lot less onerous than getting some into your office and think, well, I've got to get that person in. This is even before COVID. Book a meeting room, make them a cup of tea, give them an hour of my time, because that feels, polite or whatever, and might put them off. I'm thinking it seems to be easier when you just say, come have a quick chat, and people seem to be responding very favourably to that, I'm finding. But as your earlier point, Peter, is how you take that beyond that initial chat is the challenge now, I think, for us.
Yeah, I can see that. And I suppose the flip side of it being easier for them to have that initial chat is they haven't committed as much thought to it beforehand. So they might not feel as invested in it. So in terms of those conversations, what are you seeing in terms of what clients are looking for in terms of that advisory conversation? When we first went into this, there was lots of, let's just reach out, connect, be empathetic. Is that still happening?
I think that sort of happened now. That there was a lot of, we're all in this new world of, well, what are you doing? You've got your offices open, or how's your business doing? Which was really good, and there were some immediate things you could help clients with. Whether it was cash flow or the job retention scheme and furloughs and all of that. We're actually now looking forward. There seems to be a lot of cash around businesses. M&A and our deals team are absolutely flat out. We as a business had a record March, which was okay. It was up on last March, but not only that, it was our best March ever for PwC, which is amazing. So there's a lot of interest in what those businesses can do going forward, their strategy, and how we can help them. There's some short-term stuff, the job retention scheme. Government's paid a lot of money out. It wants to make sure it's not paid too much, or if it hasn't paid enough. So we are absolutely helping businesses with that. And of course, the whole Brexit and the new trading agreements and arrangements is an opportunity where, we literally had conversations back in January with clients where they had lorries stuck on borders because, literally the wrong box was filled out in the wrong form. So there's some short-term stuff on Brexit and trading, absolutely around the COVID schemes and how you make sure you're accounting for those and claiming the right amount. But really, it's going forward. What's my business going to do? How can you help me with my strategy, and how can you help me grow? I think.
Yeah. There's been a lot of chat from the legal sector and reports from GCs and so on saying it's allowed a much more human connection with their lawyer. Do you think is that happening in accountancy as well, or was there not that same disconnect to start with?
I'm not sure there was quite the same disconnect, but I don't know. I've never worked in the legal profession, but it definitely is more human now, because of the fact that point I made earlier about you've been on calls with people typically in their houses. You feel like you've got a much more intimate connection, and also that those people talking about their personal situation, how they're dealing with it, how their families are dealing with it, what the children are doing, all those types of conversations. You do actually feel you're a lot closer to your clients than you ever probably would have gotten to in that traditional way when you met in a more formal environment, for sure.
Yeah, that's interesting. Thanks, Simon, for sharing that. This is a good point. If you're happy, people listening live, we've got a short poll we'd like to put to you, which is asking around this point that Simon opened up with, which is about when you anticipate your firm will start arranging client events. And by that we mean, for anyone listening on YouTube, we're asking by this client events involving 30 plus people. So you've hinted, and I'm certainly delighted this week, and that tables of 6 or 2 households are able to get together outdoors. But what we're hearing from our clients and contacts right across the professions is that's great. There's an appetite for that. We're just really not seeing an appetite for any major events. So really small niche networking. Yep. Meeting for a coffee or a glass of wine, absolutely. Or maybe a very small, common interest group, absolutely. Events, 50 people, 100, 150, just not seeing that. So we've asked people who've joined us live today, when do you anticipate this will start happening? Your firm organizing client events of 30 plus people, and the options are either the next 4 months, or do you see it being September to December? Do you see it being the first 3 months of next year, 2022, or April 22 at the earliest? Or final option, never. So the answers are just rolling in here. If I may give you just a moment more to complete. 87% have now voted, so that's pretty good. I'll just end the poll and then reflect the results back to you. Simon, do you see what's come up? Slight lead here for most people thinking when we get to the autumn, September to December this year, that we're going to that the firms will start arranging events, with a few saying actually it's going to be early next year, and small minority thinking it'll be beyond April. What's your view on that? What are you hearing internally?
That's really interesting. I think it definitely reflects our thinking in terms of no formal face-to-face events or large events booked in, but absolutely if you can meet with clients, your example's perfect. For a glass of wine or a coffee, or do that. But I think I'm being very sensitive to the client and the person. That's the other thing I've noticed is some people are very keen to meet, can't wait, and others are like don't want to. Still anxious, and that's quite right about leaving the home. So I think we've certainly made the offices, the position now is, you work for staff, you're welcome to come into the office. It's open, it's safe. We have a booking system. It's incredibly clean. You can't even put a coffee cup down and it's seen someone's cleaning the surface. But the same for clients, but as I say, I've been in a few days, not aware of any client meetings in the office as such. So I think that chart reflects our thinking.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, one of the things that we've heard over the last couple of weeks, especially, is that firms are being really, really sharp and really alert, and quite rightly, to what do employees want to do, and what are they comfortable with, and what's right for them. but aren't being quite as alert to, well, what do our clients want to do? What suits them best? I don't know if you're seeing that being balanced within PW.
Yeah, I think we're probably the same. Very, very good with the staff. Made the office a very safe place, but absolutely said it's up to each individual's decision where they work. Some of you will have seen the headlines last week about PwC's new sort of contract for staff that you can kind of work where you like, when you like, which which I think the BBC used as saying start when you like and finish when you like. So when I asked my bosses if it was okay to come in about 10 and finish about midday, did that work for him? Because it kind of worked for me. That didn't really, I think he got the sense I hadn't quite understood it, but we're absolutely saying, you can flex your time to the staff. Friday afternoons will probably be a half day now for that summer period of July and August. But I think you're right. We have to be very careful with the clients because a little bit sector. Some clients, we've got clients in sectors like manufacturing where factories are open. Factories have been open the whole time, and so when you're talking to them, they're quite surprised. And I noticed this earlier in the lockdown. They're quite surprised that you're not in an office because they've just been in an office throughout this whole process. Whereas you've got other people in, professional services or IT who've completely gone for remote working. So there is having to be that sensitive to what the client's business is, and that individual as well. Quite rightly so. Some people are more cautious, and some people are perhaps more outward going in terms of their reaction to this. So you've got to be alive to that rather than pushing someone to face-to-face meeting that clearly doesn't want it, or vice versa, backing off from a face-to-face meeting if the client really is kind of expecting that from you.
Yeah. So it's just that being alive to what they want.
Yeah.
Is that what you're doing personally? And coming back then to the employee side, as a massive employer, I'm sure you bring in thousands of people every year as new starters, and yourself amongst them. But
yes.
At a graduate level as well, and school leavers into the firm. What sort of numbers are coming in, and how's that working?
Well, I saw the other day, approximately, we've recruited 3,000 people, and then the majority of those are graduates and new joiners during this 12-month period. So it's a massive amount. I've got to say, for me, it worked perfectly. You literally, your first day is at home. You do an online check, and then bizarrely, I'm not sure it's always as coordinated. There's a knock on the door and a courier arrives with your laptop, and that you're off and you're running. But I think for us, we're we're just aware that particularly with graduates, perhaps less so than senior hires, that learning process is crucial. That they can do their online learning and their accountancy exams and their professional exams, but it's being around an office, being around a team of other people and asking those, literally, does it go in this column or that column? Yeah. Which we're seeing people are reluctant because they go, well, I could phone that person, but they're busy, or I can set a Google Meetup, but now that's going to have to be Wednesday afternoon, and all those very casual, quick conversations. So for us, just trying to encourage people to work with their teams in the best way they can, but if that is face-to-face, that's great. So they get that informal learning and leadership and coaching and mentoring that just seems to be harder to achieve in a virtual world. So it is important for us to continue that with so many new hires and so many sort of inexperienced hires coming in.
Yeah. But you're clearly still keeping the South Coast office and so on. There's no.
Yeah, that's another important thing for us. I mean, other firms, my previous firm, they've retrenched out of the regions, shut 6-7 region offices. The one I used to work in, Southampton, for example, closed down and seemed to be coalescing around sort of major cities, and that's it. We're completely opposite. We're very much invested in the region we work in. This city region of Southampton and the South Coast. We've just recently heard about Freeport in the budget. It's really important for PwC to be engaged with the place it works in and absolutely have a place where people can come and work. And that's part of that flexible one, because it's not always convenient to come to Southampton, but if you're working out of London and actually live in Winchell Basingstoke, it may be easy to come into a Southampton or a Reading for your office, and we want to have that facility rather than just say, no, we've shut offices and it's home working. So yeah, we see it as it's very important to have that physical presence as well when you're in a region or a big city, as opposed to just saying, okay, I've got 500 people that live there. It's never the same as if you've got that physical presence. So yeah, it's really important for us. Which is great for me, living just 10 miles from the office.
Yeah, it sounds in every way, it sounds you're in a good place. Simon, time has flown in as I knew it would. One final question, something we ask all our guests on BD TV. What are you most looking forward to when lockdown is fully over?
I think I've got no, you asked me, I've got no, I'm more, I think in summary, I'm more having to be less planned about things. So if you do want to go out for a drink or meal or cinema, it just not having to think about all the things that you've had to, we're going to think about anything for a while. And even now you kind of think, well, is this one open or that one not open? Or do I need the mask for this? Just having a more unstructured lifestyle and work style, I think, is what really appeals to me. And of course, there's other things like being able to travel. That'd be great. But I think generally it's just that everything and everybody being a bit more relaxed and being a little bit, just outgoing in what we're doing.
Yeah, sounds good to me. Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
So I hope life continues as well as it started at PwC. Thanks very much for joining us from the Derry room today. It's been great to catch up with you. And thanks to everyone else who's listening to this right now. We'll be back in a month, same time, same place. Thanks very much.
Thanks
Good afternoon.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.